2, and 1.
We are here on Address It. I'm here with Collin Beachy. Collin Beachy is running for school board, correct?
Correct.
School board
At large.
At large,
Yes.
okay. Tell me about that. How you get into that?
How did I get into that?
Yeah.
Listen, I'm a teacher right now. I teach in the Minneapolis public school system. George Floyd's murder is really what kind of really started to spur this for me. You know, what I went through, I guess, is really not important. I think what kind of came out of it is that I just felt like I wanted to make a bigger impact on some things. And so I kind of started thinking about that a little bit, that might be a way that I possibly could. So I kind of started looking into it, thinking about it, and then just a lot of things that happened during and after the strike just kind of made me just sort of be like, you know what, I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring right now. I didn't think that, initially I was thinking about possibly running just in a district, smaller area. I mean, this at large, it's pretty daunting running for a whole city. And, you know, I just felt like conversations with my friends and my partner, and I have a really good friend who's an elected officer, and it just was, felt like maybe it was time to just give it a shot now.
So, you had a choice? Do you have a choice to run at large or just a district?
Not this year. Not this year. Like if I would have run next year, I would have had that choice because my district isn't up right now.
Okay.
So districts 1, 3, and 5 are up right now. So those people, so the people in districts 1, 3, and 5 will have the choice between 1 candidate and 2 at-large candidates.
So what school are you teaching at?
I teach at Transition Plus. Now this is it's in the Center for Adult Learning. There's 2 schools in there.
Okay.
We have the adult education on one side, and then I teach at Transition Plus on the other side. We're right behind South High School. The football field is what basically kind of separates us there, down there in 21st and Lake. And my school so Transition School is for special education students, 18 to 21. And we certainly have the educational needs and things that we take care of, but we really are primarily focused on employment skills and independent living skills for our students.
Okay. Can you do both, though?
Yeah, I won't be able to. If I'm elected, I will have to find a job in a different district.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that means you serious, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That was almost a deal breaker for me when I found it out. I mean, I really like my job.
Right.
I really like my job. But it just, again, I just kind of was. I think this would be worth it if I were to succeed at doing so. But yeah, you know, I mean, it just, you know, it makes sense. You know, I'd be voting on contracts that I would be benefiting from. No. You know, so it's conflict of interest.
So you say that George Floyd or surrounding that was what really got you into this?
Yeah, I mean, just it was partly because of what I went through. It's sort of like I sort of feel like I never want to feel that way again, but I also don't want to forget how I was feeling because it just was sort of a motivation thing, and it was a lot of introspection that I had to do that I never really had done before.
Did you feel like something wasn't working out right, or something?
No, I just felt like I wasn't doing enough, and I felt like I wasn't. I was kind of just doing my thing, and it was about me and about my teaching, you know, whatever the materials are, instead of really kind of truly getting a deeper understanding of what some of our students are actually kind of going through in their personal lives. It just was. I mean, not that I never ever considered that, because I've been teaching for 21 years, so I've had many situations with, you know, some horror stories with what some students go through. But I just think that on a larger cultural level and what's going on in our city and what's going on in our country, I just felt like I haven't really truly done as much as I think that I can.
So, I mean, what's some issues that you're focusing on relative to school board education?
Yeah, so right now, I just really, with the strike, with the CDD, with the comprehensive district design, and with COVID and having to do distance learning, it's been a relatively crazy couple of years. And so there's a lot of trust that's been lost. I just think that the public is just kind of, you know, I mean, we had a strike for 3 weeks, you know, so I mean, there's no more evidence that things are broken. And so, but there's also just kind of been a lot of hurt going on here. being in this system, I just kind of feel like there are a lot of things that are happening that don't necessarily need to be happening, that could, in one point, relieve some of the pressure off of our teachers, but another way that can also be bringing more voices into.
You said
into
things
what
are
it is that we're
happening
doing.
that doesn't need to be happening?
Yeah,
Like
so
what?
I teach in special education, and so my school is a level 4 school, and so we have students that come to us with some pretty severe therapeutic needs, and we don't have the resources to deal with those therapeutic needs. And by resources, I'm oftentimes meaning some bodies and people who have the right training to be able to deal with that, and can also work with some other students. Now, we used to contract with District 218, where we could send these students to this place where these students would get their resources. We decided to kind of bring them back here to the into the public schools, and it's sort of like when I'm saying we're bringing students in here, but we're not giving resources that we need in order to actually address this student's needs. I mean, his therapeutic needs are pretty severe, and there are 4 or 5 SEAs that have to be in the room with him at a certain time. Someone's gotten a concussion, and it's sort of like when there's physical violence going on here, and it's not this kid. You know, this is a disability that he has, and it's not like he's being a bully and just being mean. It's just something has snapped in his head. But again, we don't have some of those resources to be able to help this child. And
So when you say no resources, are you like financially?
well, financially is always a big part of it. Finance is going to be a part of everything. And so because, yeah, it's like we need to have a therapist who is here working with this student. And we don't have that. As I mentioned, we're a transition school. This is not what we do at this school. We're not a behavior management type situation.
All right.
And so if some of these students are coming here, we've got to make sure that we're providing resources for the teachers. And so I just, again, being in this system, and so, you know, any policies that I'd like to think about or any policies that I would have to vote on or whatever is exactly what I've just said. I want to make sure that that with those policies, resources are coming to it, because otherwise it's like giving our teachers an unfunded mandate and expecting them to do more with less.
No, I asked that because that's a lot of people's concern with, special needs, disabilities, being underfunded. You know, so what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, listen. So first of all, this starts at the top. So well back in the I want to say it's even back in the 1980s, but there was, and I don't know if this was a law, an amendment, or just an agreement that the legislature had made, whatever it is. They were going to, and this is state and federal government, they are supposed to fund up to 40% of the special education costs, and they're not doing that right now. So because they're not doing that, we have to draw from our general funds to pay for these mandated special education costs. And so therefore, when you're drawing from our general fund, now we're losing funding for some of our other programming. So a big part of what has to happen is it's got to be full speed ahead. The legislature is still right now sitting on the $9.2 billion surplus. The Democratic Party is offering us a lot of money. The governor is offering us a little bit less. The Republicans are not offering us much at all. So the tactic that we have to do is, like, again, as I've been running and talking with legislatures that are, some that are already in the legislature, some that are running, they're very pro public schools. They are on our side with this. I don't need to waste a lot of time lobbying with them. I've got to spend my time talking to these people who are not wanting to fully fund our special education program, and also let them know how this is affecting their district as well. Now, I don't have things here with me, but I could tell you district by district how much each family is paying per student to make up for the special education costs that the federal government and the state government isn't paying. So, yeah, and when a lot of the money comes in, where does a lot of that money have to go? It's going to have to go to bodies and people and teachers and education assistants. And, you know, so there's a whole, the funding is a big problem that is not just a Minneapolis public schools problem. We've all got to get a handle on this.
So I mean, like, what are you looking to bring to the school board, though?
Again, just my experience as a teacher. I know I know what goes on right here in Minneapolis public schools, and I just think that, you know, I know the system, I know the players in the system. I want to be able to, if I'm elected, I want to do something where one of the committees that we have is to be on the committee with to work with the superintendent. Because, quite frankly, if I am elected, and I'm going to serve 4 years. The most important decision I'm going to have to make is going to come in the first 6 months. We have to hire a superintendent. And so what I want to do, I don't want to get off track from your question here too, but I also kind of want to let people know what some of the board's actual responsibilities are and what we can do. Because I know before even I ran for school board, I was like, well, why isn't the board doing this and why isn't the board doing that?
Right.
And now that I'm understanding a little bit more some of our responsibilities, well, they really can't do something about that. So what I'm going to try and bring to the school board is to try and bring a little bit more community engagement. Now, I've been looking at other school districts around the country that have gone through similar problems that we are going through, and some that have had some proven success. I'd like to hear about this. I may have the wrong city, but I think in Cincinnati, in less than 10 years, they dropped their achievement gap from 14% down to 1%. Why would we not take a look at that? So
How were they able to do that?
That's what I'm saying. That I don't know yet. That would be further resources and actually further conversations that I would actually have to talk to. This was a while back, so I don't even know if some of the board members that are on the board now were even involved in that process when that started. But there's ways to research who was and see if there's ways you can make some contact with some people. Even if I weren't to find them, you could still talk with people who are in the system right now down there to do that.
But I mean, some of the bigger issues, though, not bigger, I shouldn't say bigger, some of the other issues like public safety, what's your position on that?
Like specifically?
Violence in school, weapons in schools, some of the stuff you're going to be over.
Yeah, and so public safety is a big deal right now. No,
How to handle it, basically.
Yeah, and so the thing is that is not necessarily my expertise and things like that. So again, what I'm going to have to do is make sure that I've already had one just brief conversation with the public safety officer at the Minneapolis Public Schools, and so there needs to be a conversation with him about what his overall vision is and what he sees that is lacking. And then my job would be to go around and define whatever connections in the community with Minneapolis Police Department, whoever it might be, to try and see whatever resources we can do to make sure that our schools are physically safe. And this is coming from, with the school shootings that we're kind of hearing about. And so, how do we do this? Is there, do we need to have metal detectors at some schools? I'm not real big on that, just from the appearance of that. Yeah. But if that community, if that school, if that principal, those teachers, those parents, this is what they feel that they need in their school district or in their schools, then we need to have that discussion with
community engagement, see what they want.
Yeah, complete community engagement. And listen, and so when I'm talking about community schools, which is part of the long-term vision that I have, to return to that true model of community schools, not just the neighborhood of where your school is. It is truly bringing in every single resource we have available to us in the city to enhance our students' education. There are ways that we can bring programming in what's going on at North now with the CTE, with the new building that they put there. North also has a solar garden on top of their roof, and from my understanding is that there is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be right in the CTE building or if it's in a building right nearby North High School, where students right here in the community will learn about how to install solar panels and learn about all green energy and sort of
CTE.
Make it the whole. I'm sorry. It's technical education. The C. I don't want to say. I think it is C. I think it's community and.
So it's like it's a program.
Yeah, we actually already have it in Minneapolis Public Schools right now. I think one of them I know one program, part of it is at Washburn High School. And now with the CDD, with how the redesign of everything, they're kind of trying to locate all of those CTE programs right there at North High School.
Okay. So, I mean,
I don't know if I really answered your question, Malik, about the safety thing.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to that. So, I mean, some people are for law enforcement present. Some people are against law enforcement present. I have to imagine you'll have to make a vote on that type of stuff.
Yeah. Right now, I have to say I'm not comfortable with it. But again, would this be something that I would, if I'm being told this is what the community needs, this is what the community wants, can we have that discussion? I certainly would be willing to sit down and have that discussion. The part of the problem that I have with what goes on is that, and I know this firsthand, and so when you have to call a school resource officer or the police into a certain situations, now police procedures now take over. We as a school have no say, nothing whatsoever, and there may be ways to be able to handle certain situations without having to arrest a kid and bring him to jail or whatever it might be. And so I would like to see if it were a discussion, I would like to make sure that we've got to have some control over this as well. And I was going somewhere with that. I forgot.
I want to ask you a little bit more about, I guess, special education and disability. Some people are saying, have the opinion that special ed students should be in the same classroom as normal students.
General ed students.
Yeah. So, but then there's other people that's against that.
Yeah.
And you having that experience, what do you say to that?
Yeah, that really has to be a case-by-case basis, and I can honestly tell you that. So we have, because what we have going on here, and so the mainstreaming is what you're talking about. When you have students who are receiving special education classrooms, and we want to try and get them as many general education classes as possible.
Yeah, some people think it will help.
And in some cases, for some students, that does. It works very well for them. And some students, they spend most of their time in the general education class, but something because they may have a severe case of anxiety, they need that special education room. It could be as simple as that. So there's some reversing, there's some both ways with that. But an example then, so at Transition Plus, our entire school is special education. So we are not tucked away in one part of the school and just show up randomly here in these classes. And so there's just something about, if you were to come into our school, you could obviously tell that there were some special needs students there, but it would feel like any other high school. They're going to 6-hour classes. They're moving around just like a general ed student would do. And so we see a lot of students like really thrive in these last 3 years that we have them there. We hear this from parents constantly. So, you know, there really is both sides to this argument, so I wouldn't really come down hard on one side or other. The pandemic, right? We have a student that we had in our class, he is basically nonverbal, and so we didn't really hear much from him. We get online, do our online learning, all of a sudden this kid is typing up answers that we're all like, what is going on? And so, you know, this is something that is benefiting this child. We now need to find a way to make sure that we take advantage of that.
Wow. So, I mean, what would you say, what makes you the best candidate, though?
My teaching experience. I honestly believe that. I also believe that just some of my, it's been 21 years. It's been in metro districts, it's been in urban districts, it's been in suburban districts.
Has it all been in special education?
No, I started off teaching elementary school. I started in 4th grade and then went into 6th grade. I started down in Bloomington. Okay. And I took a job there because I was also coaching at the time, and when I was looking for a job, I wanted to find something that had both of those opportunities available. So I ended up there, started teaching on the east side, but my coaching job was on the west side, so I had to move over to the teaching on the west side over there. And then some family things came up, so I moved back home up near central Minnesota, stayed up there for a few years. And that's when I started into special education. And I started in there in level 4 EBD. And so the last 11 years of my teaching career have been in special education.
So a lot of people are concerned about curriculum. And so I just want to know what your thoughts is about the curriculum,
Yeah, so I'm also the equity lead at our school. That was another thing that I wanted to do after, when I was talking about the George Floyd and making a bigger impact. That was the first thing that I did, was kind of take on that. And so took me a year, but I went to a lot of different workshops, talked with a lot of people within the district, and kind of created some nice framework on how to talk to our teachers about implementing some culturally responsive teaching practices. And there's 2 women who have been very influential on the kind of program that we're putting out there, and that's Dr. Goldie Muhammad and Dr. Bettina Love. And what's going on is they have a framework that's already out there. So this is not something that we need to go and reinvent the wheel somewhere, but there is culturally responsive teaching that we can do that reflects the lives of our students and still maintains that academic rigor. And in her book, Cultivating Genius, Dr. Muhammad mostly talks about, in terms of reading and writing programs, but there are certainly ways that this can be expanded into other areas. I heard in one of your interviews, you had said something about people are teaching hip hop. That's what Dr. Love talked to us about. Okay. There's a whole curriculum and a whole program there that's also got an entire history behind it, where, you know, these are things where students need to not just be able to, when you say that, you know, they can't, we don't want them just to be able to see themselves in other people. We want them to make sure that they're sharing some lived experiences with their teachers and with what it is that they're learning. Right. They can identify with what is happening here. It's like I said, it's not just as simple as, for example, having teachers of color. It's not just as simple as having someone who looks like you. It's got to be someone who has shared some of your life experiences and has a true understanding of what your life is like and what it is that might motivate you to learn.
But you do think it's important?
Oh, definitely important.
For teachers to look like the students?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I didn't mean to say that it's not important. No, absolutely. That it is important. I'm just saying it's more than just having them look like you. It's got to be people who have got that empathy and got that understanding of where you know, where you're coming from and what your life is all about. And that's part of what Dr. Muhammad's teaching is all about. It's also asking teachers questions to make sure that are focusing on the actual population of students that's sitting in front of us and making sure that our curriculum is reflecting that. So again, this isn't something that I think has to even necessarily go through some big expensive search or anything. It's already out there, you know, and I'm suspecting that if I were to look into some of these urban school districts who have seen their numbers drop, I'm suspecting that they're probably instituting some sort of culturally responsive teaching framework.
A lot of times people would like for administration, teachers to be held accountable. Mm-hmm. You know, like it's not enough to just hire. You know, they want to know, what does accountability look like? How do we make sure we're holding teachers accountable for teaching our students what they need to be taught? You know.
Yeah, that's a good question too. And right now, the standards that we have, you know, we look at how your students are doing on your tests. And there's got to be a much more deeper analysis into how it is that we are not only evaluating our students, but how we're evaluating our teachers and what we're expecting of them. Now, I go through an evaluation at least once a year. Every now and then, there's two that I have to go through just to kind of make sure that I'm doing exactly what you're doing and staying on top of things. And so I think that is one way to make sure that is happening. Maybe twice a year is good, just to kind of keep up with everything. And pardon me, but I think that there's also has to be this accountability in how teachers are doing and everything. There also then that moves into a little bit of transparency as well. And so we've got to figure out ways to make sure that we're letting the public know what is going on in our schools. How are we evaluating our teachers? Now, specifically, how would we do that? You know, there'd be a lot of people I'd need to kind of have a conversation with about finding a better way to sort of evaluate our teachers rather than how our students are doing just based on their test scores.
So basically, your biggest thing is you're looking to have a voice. You're looking to have a vote, you know, and make sure that the right things are getting voted on. Was that what you said?
Yeah, you know, in general, I have my beliefs, and I have again, because of my teaching experience, people who may not have such any more extensive experience in curriculum development kind of thing. You know, I can sit and talk with them about that. They don't need to kind of do their research right from the ground zero. I'm already, you know, up to speed on that. And so the thing is that I again, understanding things that I'm learning now too, I also understand that there has got to be a way that I'm going to have to work with everybody else on the board. And I've got to have a positive working relationship with them. I'm not going to be able to come in and say, here's Goli Muhammad's framework, and we're going to put this in with the school board. I've got to get buy-in with everyone else, and I've got to be able to have conversations with them and be able to, you know, show them why I believe this is one of the better ways for us to at least approach curriculum. And so, do I want to have an impact? I do, but it's not. I mean, it's not about me having this impact. I mean, really, it's not. It's just I'm not doing this for myself. We talked about this earlier. I love my job. I mean, I'd be, quite frankly, up until 6 months ago, I was planning on, this is the job I'm going to retire in.
Yeah.
So I would have been perfectly content to kind of stay in my job and kind of keep fighting from that end. But partly some of the stuff that kind of happened with the strike, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm just saying, I'm kind of tired of this fighting and pointing fingers and doing all of this. Now, there were 2 other school districts that had a strike. There's a strike in Chicago, there's a strike in Los Angeles. I'm just using those 2 as an example that's saying that I just think we have 2 clear paths in how we can handle things post-strike here now. In Chicago, they're still back to their infighting. District wanted to close the school, didn't tell the teachers, didn't tell the union. They were threatening to go right back on strike, so they had their little arguments, got everything taken care of, and school didn't have to close down. But there was no communication between them. Now down in Los Angeles, everyone who was involved with the strike, board, administration, teachers union, sat down creating a framework to try and see if there's something that they can do to avoid this so that this kind of a thing doesn't happen again. And so that's the kind of mentality that I kind of want to bring a little bit as well, that we have got to stop fighting. We have got to stop being, I just feel like we have an administration that has been very top-down, one-size-fits-all, and not really thinking about the effects of how it's
That's what I was
dealing
going
with the people on the ground.
kind of beat me to it. That's what I was going to ask. What hasn't been working that you've seen? Like what hasn't been working?
So one thing, so now we talked briefly about the CDD as well. So I'm going to get to your question, but the point is that, so with the new CDD that is coming out right now, it started, it still hasn't taken full effect. There's some big changes coming again next year. And so I would like for us to just, I've talked with some principals about this. Let's put a moratorium, 2 years, no new initiatives. Let us get caught up with what's going on with the CDD, catch our breath, and get up to speed with what we're supposed to be doing. But what happens is that we keep getting these directives from the administration, but no direction, no support. Directives, and so things are changing because of the CDD. I was speaking with an early childhood special education teacher, and because of the new boundaries, their providers are changing, and they have different families that they have to do. So they were told, you need to go out and get XYZ done by September, but they were given, what are we supposed to say? Is there a letter that we can give them? Is this a coordinated process? Do you want 1 nurse to go? Do you want 2 nurses to go? Just get it done. And, these are questions that could have been taken care of right from the very start while you're making that directive and while you're making that policy that you're going to pass on to someone. You're going to tell them what they need to do, give them a deadline, but you're not going to give them extra time to work on that. You're not going to give them any direction on how they should accomplish that. So now you've got different early childhood special education people all over the city kind of doing their own thing to try and inform their parents. When in this type of a situation, this is early childhood. This is the first contact some parents are having with the school district. We got to be on our game. That should have been taken care of. That should not have been left up to the teachers to figure out. That's something that the administration should have figured out before they passed that down. This is what we need you to do. Here's a way that you can do it. We'd like to have you have it done by September. And there's just a lot of other different policies and things like that that come down where there's just not the understanding of how this is affecting people on the ground.
You talked about it a little bit, but what are the responsibilities of the school board?
Yeah, so there's essentially 4. Now these aren't necessarily written in stone, but there is the setting policy that we talked about. I mentioned talking about creating a long-term vision. Then there is oversight of the administration. And then that 4th one is to make sure that you're having working relationships, not only with the board, but with other people throughout in the community. So in general, those are the 4 responsibilities of things that because it's, so for example, I before thought like if something was going on, I as a school board member could walk into the school and tell the principal, you need to fix this problem. It doesn't work that way, right? So that it wouldn't work any more than me coming telling you what you have to do. No. Because I'm not that principal's boss. I'm your boss's boss's boss. And so I have 1 employee, and that's the superintendent. And so if there's any directive that I want to be able to give that's on behalf of the school board, It has to be something that has been voted on.
Yeah.
By all 5 people, by all 9 of us sitting down, and at least a 5-member majority have to agree with that. So it's like building a house. You got 9 contractors. You can't have 9 different people running around doing different things. It's even hard enough to just have 5 doing one thing, 4 doing another thing. So you've got to be able to have that established working relationships and be able to pick up the phone and have conversations with other board members, get each other's values, and see if we can come to an agreement on a situation.
I mean, is it hard to do that? I mean, it seems like when you make people that run for school board, they should have the best interests of students or community. Is that not always the case, you think?
Yeah, it can be, and it's not always the case. And no, listen, I'm saying nothing about the current board members because I don't know most of them personally. But in other places, our race is nonpartisan here in Minneapolis, so that's a good thing. But yeah, in other places you're getting people who have opposing political values, and the opposing political parties are endorsing people, and so it's making school boards become a little bit more, political. But in terms of maintaining those working relationships, is it hard? I don't think that it should be hard. I know one thing that I am also unaware of is how much. What the pay is, so I am going to have my own full-time job. I think that other board members are going to have full-time jobs, so there is a part of time, but that's something that should have been considered when you were thinking about running for the board, that's something that you're going to have to do. And so I've, there's a couple candidates who are running on the Safe and Stable Schools slate with me. So Carrie Jo Felder, I talk with her all the time. Lori Norville, just got off the phone with her before we came over here. And then I sat down and met with one board member, current board member, and have a meeting scheduled later this week with a second board member, just to make sure that I can start establishing a relationship with them in case I am elected and am going to be a colleague of theirs. And so,
would this be your first political?
This
position?
is my first political. Yeah. So it's crazy being something that's this big, that's citywide. But I'm enjoying it. I'm getting out to parts of the city that I've never been in before, and you're meeting a lot of people and hearing a lot of views.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I just like to hear your opinions on things that could possibly be.
Sure.
So I mean, things like transgenders in education. What's your position with that?
Well, I assume you're talking going to go down the road of bathrooms and sports and all those kind of things.
Yeah. Just the integration.
Yeah. So listen, I am the equity lead, and so when I'm talking about equity means everyone. We've got to be making sure that we're taking care of every marginalized person that's in here. So I understand some of the fears that people may have about some things, but if we're going to have a conversation about this, and we want to talk about this, we've got to include the transgender community in this conversation. So you and I should not be sitting down and making a decision about what's going to happen to them. I think we know what it's like being marginalized ourselves and decisions that are made. So, look, there are ways around this. If people don't want to have only gender-neutral bathrooms, as long as we are providing something that is available for students to be able to do so, I am for having that opportunity. So, I look at transgender bathrooms, and again, there is a little bit of political hype that gets up sometimes, and then we need to sort of bring it down to a little bit of reality. And anybody who's been on a plane has been in a gender-neutral bathroom. They have gender-neutral bathrooms now in St. Paul. I think I don't want to be quoted on this, but I think it might be a policy, and I'm not real sure about that. But I know that they have some of those bathrooms in St. Paul, and as of yet, I don't think I've heard of any issues or any problems or anything.
But I mean, is it a certain age group of exposure? Should it be in elementary school? Should it be or middle schools, high school? What's your thoughts?
The thing is that when you're talking about the grade level and this is not like it's something that is I think going to be taught. This isn't a lesson. This has got to be just about acceptance. And learning how to navigate in a world with people who are completely different from you. You may have no understanding of what it is that they're doing. It may go completely against whatever your beliefs are, but they are still a human being. It's not my job as a teacher to judge them. It's my job to educate them and provide them a safe learning environment. You talked about safety before. Those students need to feel safe in schools as well, our transgendered students. So the sports, I'm a little more. There's some more questions I would like to ask. There's a little bit more I would like to learn about. I think that people would assume that a male who's transitioned into a female is going to have a certain amount of advantage. My understanding, though, and I don't know if this is NCAA rules or if this is a state, but you have to have a certain, you can't have a certain level of testosterone level in your system and in your body, and so.
Oh, you get tested for stuff like that?
I'm just, from what I remember, I certainly do not want to be nailed down and say, well, this is what he said, because I could be completely off.
No.
But I do remember there is something about certain levels of, because this swimmer from that was out in, I think it was Connecticut or somewhere out east, that was smashing all these records. I remember reading a little bit about that at some point. Now, before I would make any decisions, I just would have to have more information. My tendency would be leaning towards making sure that we're protecting our trans students.
Personal biases, amongst teachers, administration. How do we try to, close that gap? Take that out of education as much as possible.
Well, you see, now you're talking about also a larger societal issue. I mean, certainly as it comes into the schools, absolutely it has. Again, there are, from some of the equity lead work that I'm doing, there are ways. I don't necessarily. I mean, it's important to have conversations with people, but there's also a time when you need to kind of act on those conversations with things, and so. There is the framework, again, that we are putting in that is trying to help people not only understand who you are, but where are some of these hidden biases coming from, and sort of understanding that maybe some of the things that you are thinking and feeling about other people are not necessarily your fault, but it's been how you've been conditioned and how you've been raised and how everything's been taught to you and showed to you in the media, from in the schools. From your friends, all of that. And so I just think if people can kind of step back a little bit and sort of get a little bit of a handle on that kind of a thing, just sort of like, how are you really, there's an identity chart kind of framework that we used in this equity work that I'm doing to try and help you get to understand that yeah, I may be a black gay male, and so I've got 2 negatives against me. But if I'm talking to a white lesbian female, I may still have some certain societal advantages that they may not have. And so it's just kind of understanding that everyone's got these societal pressures and how people view them, and that affects how I view people as well. And so it takes a little bit of that, again. I mentioned earlier some of that self-examination about how it is that you are viewing someone without really thinking about how either they identify themselves or how everybody else is identifying them, and you're playing into that.
Just give me a little bit more background information, though.
Sure.
Like, where are you from here, or?
Yeah, so I was born in Shelbyville, Kentucky, and I was adopted when I was 3 months old. And so I was raised in Staples, Minnesota, central Minnesota, 30 miles west of Brainerd. So I'm an interracial family. Both my parents are white. My 2 older sisters are white. I have a adopted brother from a different family. He's also African American. He's 3 months older than I am. And then I have a younger brother who is also white. And so we grew up there. We're a big sports family. Had our 15 minutes of fame. You know, did pretty well successfully athletically. And
What'd you play?
I was a cross country runner. I played basketball and I ran track and field. So
You good at all three?
yeah, I'm a 3-time state champion. I'm a national champion in the steeplechase. Like all 5 of us kids, we've all been an All-American in one sport or another. We've got everyone's won either a state or a national championship. A couple of us have won both. So went up to school up at Concordia College up in Moorhead, Minnesota. That was not my first choice. My choice was I did want to come down here and run for the University of Minnesota, but I went up to NDSU up there to start off with and ended up transferring over to Concordia. It was kind of a family dynamics, which kind of came into play with where I went to school, and it's not important, but so Concordia, when I went there though, at the time their elementary education program was the #2 rated program in the country, so I really did get a real good education up there.
Look, so you was a runner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So long distance running, and so cross country was 5,000 meters. I think it's still 5,000 meters now. Yeah.
So I mean, so do you ended up going to school for teaching to become a teacher?
Yeah. Listen. I say that in some of my speeches when I'm out there talking. I've always known I wanted to be a teacher. I've known since I was in junior high. So there's just nothing else I really have ever wanted to do.
So a lot of people, a lot of candidates have talked about recruitment of teachers that look like us. Yeah. What do you suggest? How do we recruit better? Yeah,
so we have a grow your own program here at Minneapolis Public Schools with St. Thomas, where we're helping students or our SEAs be able to get teaching licenses. Now, I'd like to see us come back even further on that, because right now that's a master's program, and so some of the best teachers that we have working with our students are already working with them right now, and those are our education support professionals. Now, I told you how I'm looking at other schools. Milwaukee Public Schools has some sort of program where they are giving tuition reimbursement to certain education support professionals that will sign an agreement that they're going to work in Minneapolis Public Schools for at least 5 years, and we'll help you with kind of your tuition reimbursement. We'll help you making sure that you can take some classes while you're still doing your job here, and making it easier for people to get to the position of teaching. And so I think that that's really one place that we can certainly start, because the majority of our support professionals are people of color. And I think if we were to give them a pathway, I think some of them would jump on that. And like I said, they're right here. Let's get them into the profession.
Tell me something interesting, wacky, some people don't know, tell me something.
Okay, something completely off the...
Yeah.
Okay,
this about you.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of sad, actually, though, but I'm a big Tudor and Plantagenet fan from 15th, 16th century England. Don't ask me why. I got into it. But I tell you what, I can name every king and queen of England from Henry I to James I. And there's a certain part in there where I could even start drawing out a family tree for you. It's just, I don't know, it's just the whole Wars of the Roses, the whole family dynamics and all that is fascinating to me. So that's why I'm really enjoying like the Game of Thrones and House of the Dragons. I just find those family dynamics and people who have power and just kind of what that sort of does to you. I don't know. It's just so that's a really weird thing about me.
Yeah. So, yeah. We gotta get to know you. You know, we gotta know the ins and outs, what you into. You know, if you could just speak to the people directly, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I just want to tell them that again. Like I said before, this is not something that I'm kind of doing for myself. I just really am wanting to try and bring the community. I want to bring the public back to our public schools. And
what does that mean?
Well, okay, so it means if you go to a school board meeting, and so the people who are literally sitting at the table across from where the board members are sitting, we're constantly hearing from administrators. Well, I want to start hearing from some teachers. I want to start hearing from some community members how they might be able to help and have some input. That is one way to bring people back in here. Now, I've talked to you also about the funding and the lobbying and everything. So I know that they have connections with other school boards around the district or around the state. But here's the deal. Like I'm saying, if we're still sitting on this $9 billion surplus. This is all hands on deck. I think the district should be reaching out to parents, right? And there are people who will make phone calls. There are people who love being political. And they will reach out to legislators. They will write letters. They will form groups. They will do those. So let's let them know, here's where you can help us as well. That's part of bringing the public back in here. There are people that do honestly and truly want to help. Their hearts and minds are in the right places. I talked with a parent who left. She did everything she was supposed to. She went to the site council meetings. She went to all the events that was going on with the school. She talked with her teachers. And she just felt like nobody was being responsive to her. And so that's something that we have to work out to, and I'm trying to figure out what are some good ways to, I talked about transparency and communication, because a lot of people are saying that they feel like they're not hearing from the school board. So what is the best way to start communicating with people?
But they're not hearing from the school board?
Yeah, there's people are saying that they're emailing the school board and the school board's not emailing them back or is not responding back to them. And, I know even just from now, just from being a candidate already, I mean, I'm shut my phone up, and as soon as I pick it up, I'm going to have a whole list of emails I'm going to have to go back and answer. So it's a lot, especially if I'm going to be running citywide. It's going to be an awful lot. But I just would like to know from people, what is the best way? How do you want me to communicate with you? Do you want the emails? I'll send them. Do you want town hall meetings? I'll attend as many as I can. So I just seriously, I want to let the public know that, look, again, growing up in a small town, anyone who's grown up in a small town will tell you, your school and your hospital are the beating hearts of your community. Mm-hmm. Even in a city of this size, our schools can still be the beating hearts of our community. We just have to let people from the community that want to be able to contribute and have the things that resources that we may not have, be able to come and help with our public schools.
Well, yeah, just glad you could make it. We want to meet you. We want to know. We want to know who's on our ballot.
Yeah.
So
no, I appreciate you doing this. If I could just jump back to just one other quick thing. I also just want to I'm also kind of doing this for teachers and support professionals. I just can tell you from the feeling that we had for 3 weeks out there was that nobody has our back.
You were a part of that?
I was a part of that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got pictures of me standing right there on Lake Street in 21st.
What was the result?
Of the whole strike? So yeah. Our ESPs got, our support professionals, got their salaries raised significantly. I think they're now at $24 an hour. We got a salary increase of a total of 5% over 2 years. Now the 3% increase that we have is the largest increase that we've had in over 20 years. We have some anti-bias, anti-racist proposals, language that's in contract language now, first of its kind, I believe, in the country. We got some language about class sizes into the contract. Now, if you look at the numbers of what are in those class sizes, you might think it's a little crazy. It is a little crazy. I think one caps at like 40, and that's still too many.
40 per teacher?
Yeah, and that's still too many. But the point is that the contract language is here now. And so this is step one. There's going to be more steps that need to be taken to keep strengthening some of these proposals. Same thing with the anti-bias, anti-racist proposals. Those are some things that need to be strengthened. I'd like to be taking a look at that when that committee gets together to make sure they have the resources they need.
So do you consider that? So you consider that moving in the right direction?
I do. I think that I've heard people ask about was it worth it with what we're dealing with right here, right now. I have more of this long-term view of things. Did we get everything we wanted? Of course not. But like I said, I think it's a good first step. I think that union language are going to say things like, "These are wins that we got. These are wins." I'd not prefer to look at it that way, because I think that there's more that we can still do. St. Paul, when they had their strike, people were, they almost went on strike with us. And so a lot of things were saying, if St. Paul can do this, why can't Minneapolis public schools do this? Well, we can't look at St. Paul where they're at now. St. Paul made their first move against their administration 10 years ago. So that's where we got to compare ourselves to, not where they're at now. And how are we going to get ourselves to that point, hopefully in less than 10 years.
What about the hiring process, the new policy with that? How do you feel about that?
Which hiring?
I don't know what they call it for sure, but just the minorities don't get fired first.
The anti-bias, anti-racist proposals?
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I'm glad you asked about that because I really want to clear some things up about this because this blew up for a while. I mean, I got a call from Fox News, not Fox 9, Fox News out in New York to comment on this. But so what the uproar is about this whole thing is that people are talking about if there's going to be layoffs, that we're going to fire white people before we fire people of color. There's no mention of layoffs in this. It's not talking about layoffs. It's talking about excessing, and there's a difference. So if you and I'm a white man, you're a black man. You and I have the same job at this school. We have to eliminate a position at that school. So if you as a black man were hired after I was, but we're the last two people who were here, and so you will not be the person who will be excessed. I will be the person that will be excessed so that you as a person of color can keep that stability in that school where you are at so that you can get comfortable and you cannot have to be doing all of this shuffling around because that you could be excessed again the next year. Now this teacher, myself then, I would not be fired, not fired. I'm just put into this other pool of people who have been excessed until they find another placement for me somewhere else in the district. But I have not been fired.
Okay.
I've just been excessed. A position has been lost, not a job, and not a teacher. And so that needs to be sort of, that narrative really needs to be put out there and cleared up because it just, when people jump in there and talk about, they're talking about layoffs, and first of all, man, we are short 350 teachers. We're short 3 teachers in my school. We're still short 6 SEA people.
So no layoffs, no time soon.
No layoffs anytime soon. No layoffs anytime soon.
So what, is that a win?
That's a step in the right direction. I mean, I think that particular language in there is a win. The whole overall anti-bias, anti-racist proposal is a good first step. There's ways to strengthen that, and we're going to hopefully have people make sure that they do work on strengthening that.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, I appreciate you coming. If you have any last remarks.
Yeah. No. I just I appreciate what's happening here, and I just like I said, the personal side of me, I just really feel like I want to try and do something to help. I just really think that my own personal background, my own educational experience, my own work experience, I just feel like it's kind of right for this time to give this a shot. And I'm not just about high-minded phrases and wanting to make sure I'm saying the right words. I actually have experience on the ground in the trenches. No one has to tell me what educators are going through because I'm going through it myself. And so I just feel like I know that there are some things that we can be doing to sort of ease the burden on a whole bunch of people. I'd like to see us start trying to go in that direction. I just think that if we are going to get people back here and if we're going to stop people from leaving, I think one of the best ways to do that is to take care of the people who are already here, take a little bit better care of them, and to, again, be a little bit more responsive to them. And we're professionals too. So I just think that I'd like to be in a position to get all sides to just kind of just work together. I'm an optimist in general, and so I kind of bring some of that. I realize that this is going to be a very, very difficult job if I'm elected. Yeah. But like I said, I think that optimism is going to kind of always still be in the back of my mind, regardless of how difficult the problem is. I think we can get through anything. I love this city. We can do this if we put our minds to it.
Where can the people find you?
I have a website. It's Beachy for Schoolboard .com. That's my website. It's also beachy4schoolboard@gmail.com if anyone would like to send an email. I'm also on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, all the social media stuff. Never wanted to be on Twitter before, but as a campaign, you feel like you got to have a Twitter account. But yeah, so those are some ways to reach me. Also, I'm a Minneapolis public school teacher, so anybody who has access to the website can find my email at collin.beachy@minneapolis.mpls.k12.mn.us. Can find me in the directory, basically,
Yeah.
else as well. So,
All right, well, I appreciate you. I'm
yeah, I
glad you could
appreciate-
make it.
Yeah, I appreciate you allowing me the time to talk with you.
And good. Oh, November 8th?
November 8th, yeah,
Oh,
thank
okay.
you. Yep,
That's
Tuesday, November 8th is election day. Early voting has started, so people can vote right now. And, you know, and I don't know if this is a personal plea or anything, but if anyone out there, you know, wants to hear more from me, yeah, reach out to me in one of those social media forums or whatever. And, you know, I love doing meet and greets. We're going to talking to a lot of parent-teacher organizations right now. And, yeah, I just love being able to have free-flowing conversations with people. You get to know me, what my vision might be. Cast your vote.
Yeah, that's what
But
it's
either
about.
way, vote.
That's what it's about.
Yep.
Appreciate you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right.